Good evening, everybody. Hello and happy Tuesday. I'm really excited. My name is April, and I'm with ClearPath for Veterans New England. And we are having a live webinar today of a live stream series here. We're streaming to Facebook and YouTube, so welcome, friends, in our series about PTS. And tonight we're going to be talking about coping strategies. So I'm really excited to, we have some of our team members here from ClearPath that are just rocking it, helping our veterans and really making a difference in the lives of others. So I first want to just go through and introduce to you Kelly Ratcliffe and Michael Mullen. They are our peer outreach coordinators here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them start and tell you a little bit about themselves, what they do for ClearPath, kind of their journey to ClearPath, and tell a little bit about their service background, because they've done a lot for our country, and we're very blessed and honored to have them here at ClearPath helping others. So I'm going to start with you, Michael. I know, friends, he's a familiar face here on our live stream, so I'm going to let you take it away and introduce yourself tonight.
Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Mullen. Thank you for those tuning back in who were with us last time, and for those new to the webinar, welcome. I am in program development at ClearPath for Veterans New England. That title doesn't quite fit everything that ends up under my purview, but I do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I work with a lot of data, and I also have a clinical background. I have my master's in clinical and mental health counseling with a concentration in military and veteran psychology. And that was from William James College. You might recognize the name. Some of our previous guests have been associated with William James College. But I am a Army veteran, combat veteran. I served as an infantryman from 2008 to 2011. And I always wanted to work in the helping field, but never knew I wanted to help veterans until I became one. So I'm pretty happy to have found myself with ClearPath.
Awesome. Thank you. And Kelly actually was a guest on our live stream when we talked about women in the military, which was a great session. So I would love for you to reintroduce yourself to our friends, Kelly, and tell a little bit about your role at ClearPath, and again, where kind of your journey here in your service.
Okay. My name's Kelly. I am an outreach peer specialist at ClearPath New England. I actually found them when I was looking for a service dog. I was going to school full-time at the time, and I found them through the service dog program, and I ended up working with them while I was going to school and finishing my degree. And it's been a great match. I was very happy to find them, so that was great. I am an Army veteran. I was an MP, so I know that usually gets a little, that's what that gets every time. So I always had the role of helping people out. I wasn't a bad MP. I was a good one, I swear. Yeah, I couldn't do it when I got out. I couldn't be a police officer any longer. So it took me a long time to really find out where I fit, and it's definitely with ClearPath. So it's been amazing. And I did get a service dog through them, which has also changed my life greatly.
Awesome. And what's your service dog's name?
His name is Fitch.
Fitch. Okay. Yeah. You know what? I think we probably have some viewers that are civilians and that maybe not know what an MP is. Could you describe a little bit about that role? Because being a civilian, I have to tell you, I've learned so much from our time spending together and working with ClearPath, but I'd love if you could share that.
Yeah, so MP stands for military police. I was a police officer.
That's why Michael had the look.
Yeah.
Especially I've passed with many an MP.
Yeah. I deployed to Bosnia, Hungary, Korea, 2 tours in Iraq. So I went all over the world. I was active duty 8.5 years. So I did a lot of time. Unfortunately, I dislocated my knee 5 times, so that kind of killed my career as a police officer. But I was able to find my way eventually. So yeah, it's been great.
Wow. Well, both of you, thank you so much for your service, and all of our veterans and their families watching. Thank you so much. So this is I think our 4th live. Is that right, Mike, in this series?
Yep, it's 4th in this series.
Awesome. And so we've been talking about a really, a serious subject, PTS, and kind of that journey home and learning how to cope with those skills. And these guys have been great about sharing tips along the way. So I want to start with kind of just an overview. When we talk about PTS, what are some coping strategies that people should be mindful? And I know some of this might be an overlap from before, but I think it's really important to, reiterate a lot of these skills and know that, it's okay if you're feeling this way and that there is ways for you to feel better.
Right. So, tonight we are talking about coping strategies to mitigate PTS, to make your life easier. But first and foremost, just like every other topic we've discussed, what we're bringing to the table today is not the only thing one should be using in their approach to addressing their PTS symptoms. These coping strategies that we're going to talk about are things that should be used in tandem with clinical work, working with a therapist, getting counseling, whether that be in individual or group modalities. But this is just another toolbox that we're bringing to the table tonight. As far as coping strategies go, there is a lot of overlap with things we've talked about before. But basically, coping is any way to cope, to make yourself feel better, to make whatever situation you're finding yourself in a little easier, to make the symptoms you're feeling a little less intense or negative. But coping strategies themselves, there are good ways of coping and there are bad ways of coping, or what we would call maladaptive coping strategies. I'm not immune to those. I don't think anybody is. But yeah, we'll leave it at that for the introduction.
I'm not immune to them.
No. But even just, bringing them up and sharing them and talking about them like right now, just like what Brandon has talked about in previous webinars, having that refreshed in your mind every once in a while and just talking about it is enough to cue your mind, hopefully, to remember it next time that you might need it.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like a huge coping thing for you. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to start doing this whole new exercise program and I'm going to do this. I mean, exercise is great and everything, but it doesn't have to be, you can start off small. So one thing I realized was The Nightmare Before Christmas became a very significant movie for me because I was dealing with a lot of stuff and I put the movie in and it stuck with me. So I actually started, one of mine is just collecting movie memorabilia from the movie. And it was something to get me focused on other things. And that started down a huge path of, I have limited edition pieces. I have a ton of different pieces, and it's evolved over time. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge thing. You can always start off small.
Right. And let me backtrack just one step before we get into any further specifics. But really, the first and foremost thing that you have to focus on is self-monitoring, being self-aware, being aware of what you're feeling, being aware of what you're thinking, being aware of your surroundings, trying to pay attention to what may be triggering for you or what may be stirring up the pot. Because if you don't have that skill, or if you're not working on improving that skill, being able to employ the coping strategies in a helpful way can be rather difficult. You have to know when to use them, and you have to know when you need it.
Well, and you bring up a great point there. I guess one of my questions would be is how, I think sometimes people don't always recognize that they might need some help. Like, what would be some signs like, okay, I'm having some PTS. I need to figure this out and get some clinical help, but I also need to learn these coping strategies.
Really, it's any time that it is negatively impacting your day-to-day life, whether that be focused on you or focused on the people that you're interacting with every day. If your behavior, if your mood, if your communication or actions are negatively impacting you or others, that's the time to try and start addressing it. It's not as easy as that, but really that's when you should give it a go.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing.
Okay. So are you using any coping? So kind of the question is, are you using coping strategies enough to address PTS on their own? So like, can you talk to that? Like how do people that have PTS, how do they really recognize that they are using the right coping strategies?
Well, it's not necessarily the right strategy because everybody's going to have a different take on things, and every strategy that we bring up tonight is going to work differently for every individual. Again, I think the most important thing is doing this in tandem or as a follow-up on clinical work. So either working on these skills with your clinician, or if you have completed a full course of CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy to address something. This is something kind of to maintain yourself moving forward. And I know we've been speaking in a lot of generalities so far, but don't worry, we're going to be getting into the nitty gritty on some strategies, both healthy and unhealthy. So.
Which leads into the next question. So there is healthy and there's unhealthy, right? Coping strategies. Right. Can you kind of talk through what the difference is?
Well, unhealthy coping strategies are basically anything that might be helpful in the very short term or immediately. But further down the road, they're either going to be detrimental to the progress you've made or just reinforce behaviors that aren't necessarily beneficial to addressing your PTS.
Okay. Do you want to add to that, Kelly?
Yeah, it's kind of like hitting a negative with a negative is the way I look at it. There's a reason that we're, suffering from PTS. And to add a negative on top of that, yeah, it may feel good, like he said, in the short term, but long term, it's not going to be a healthy fix. It's not going to be something that is going to help you maintain, and then it'll end up much worse in the long run. We've all done it. Well, I can't say we all. I have done it. I'm guilty of doing those negative ones. Isolation's a big one for me, so I'm guilty of it. But I have enough self-reflection now, because I've been doing this for a long time, that when I see I'm going down the wrong path, I'd be like, okay, this isn't helping. I've got to change it. And it's all about adjusting where you are too.
Right. And that's tremendous for you to be able to recognize that, Kelly. I know I find myself in that situation often, and it's not always easy to recognize it in yourself.
Yeah.
Or not only that, it's not always easy to challenge yourself to do something different or to reduce that isolation. And that's where social supports, and if you have a partner at home, a family, friends, coworkers, they can really come in handy if you let them.
All right. And you know what, friends, I'm going to actually drop it again. So it's interesting how it posts, but I dropped in some healthy coping strategies and also some unhealthy coping strategies, just so you can see that in the chat, because I know sometimes a visual is a little bit easier to see. Right. So what are the maladaptive coping strategies to avoid that you would say?
Well, I would say avoidance is one to be avoided right there. When you're talking about trauma,
what gave it away?
Yeah, when you're talking about trauma, one of the biggest things that is the most difficult aspect to tackle and address is avoidance, because avoidance is, your mind or your actions. It's a very natural way to avoid anything that's unpleasant, that causes you pain, that causes you stress, that that you don't like. But not everything is avoidable, and those things that are avoidable, it's not necessarily best for you to reinforce that avoidance. So when we're talking about avoidance, we're basically talking about, not facing up to the situation. If you have, negative feelings, negative thoughts, if you are, going down memory lane and you're snapping yourself out of it and you're like, oh, icky, I don't want to touch that, or I don't want to think that. Let me go drink a six pack or something and avoid that. It could be environments. It could be something like a social environment, or going to the store, going to work, going to, I don't know, your in-laws' house. I mean, that one's, I could get on that train of avoidance, but
Yeah, and avoidance often gives way to isolation. So
right.
avoidance gives way to isolation. So when you start to avoid things, you're going to start to isolate yourself, because you're like, oh, I'm avoiding this, so I'm gonna isolate myself so I don't have to feel that stressor of running into a situation that you're not ready for. So avoidance and isolation often go hand in hand, and they are two big negatives.
Yes, they are.
We are infamous for it. We do it a lot. But it's definitely not a great thing. And as Michael was saying, like alcohol, substance abuse, anything that you over abuse is never good and never healthy for you in the long run. It may feel good in the moment, but in the long run, it definitely will not help you out.
Right.
So as we start to talk about healthy coping strategies, I would love for you, Kelly, to talk a little bit about Fitch and kind of how he has helped you as a coping strategy, and kind of how that all came to be. Because you clearly knew when you came home that you were looking for a service dog, right? And that's how you found ClearPath. So can you talk a little bit about using a service dog as a coping strategy?
Yeah, so he has completely changed my life. I was guilty of isolation and avoidance. Those were my hardest things to get over. And I had dogs my whole life, and somebody had suggested that I get a service dog and look into it. Fitch changed my life because I can't avoid things. Even when I want to, I have to take care of my dog, and I have to make sure that he's taken care of so he can take care of me. It's a very symbiotic relationship. And I can't just avoid everything because I don't want to do it and stay in bed all day and isolate, because I have a dog to take care of. And people ask about him when I'm out and about, so I found it's a great avenue to help share and to help spread the love, I guess is the best way to say it.
Educate others.
Yeah. And people always ask questions about him. And that also helps me as one of my coping mechanisms, because I'm speaking about it. And I've learned to speak about how everything's affecting me and how great having a service dog makes it. So best thing I ever did was to get Fitch as a service dog. And I know
Right.
Michael agrees. He has Maggie, and
Yes.
yeah, and she's their boyfriend and girlfriend. Our dogs love each other so much. It's great. They're work buddies, which is amazing.
Just knowing that, on a day where I don't want to go into work or something like that, and knowing that Maggie will get to meet up with Fitch, that's enough to get me past that little hump.
Yeah.
But I just want to,
and that's a huge bonus. You get to bring them to work too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's not bad at all. But pets in general, animals in general, they have so much to offer us, with the connection, with the comfort they bring, with the love, with just feeling that need to stand up and have to follow through on things because you have something else you're taking care of. But service dogs specifically, service dogs are task trained, specific to the veteran they're being matched with. So if, for instance, we're talking about like myself and what Maggie will be able to help me out with, if I have nightmares or if I have issues with road rage in the car. I talked about road rage a couple times. Or going to the store, going to the mall, getting overwhelmed. Those service dogs, those animals, they are there to help you cope, to make it so that you can go back and you can reduce that isolation and you can get back out in the world and live a more productive life and be part of society, be back in the community. And, you know, I can't believe we haven't touched on this aspect yet, but when we're talking about isolation and unhealthy coping strategies, all of those have been being reinforced for the last year for all of us. We've been in the pandemic.
Right.
We've had to isolate socially, physically. You know, people working from home, not getting the day-to-day interaction. They're not going to the store like they used to. They're not going to the mall shopping. And although we're doing what we need to stay safe and keep everybody around us safe, those things are not helping the situation, and that needs to be acknowledged.
Yeah, definitely.
Agreed. Yes. So let's talk about kind of what, so you've touched on it. So you've talked about, you both have service dogs that help you as coping strategies. Is there anything else that you particular use in terms of a coping strategy for yourselves with PTS?
Do you want the healthy ones or the unhealthy ones?
Yeah, I have both.
All right, so let's start with the unhealthy ones, because I think people, when, a lot of times people are sometimes afraid to acknowledge that they have some unhealthy coping strategies, right? I think some of us, we're in denial of like, oh no, this is not a big deal. I had a glass of wine, I had one, whatever it may be, right? And what our unhealthy coping strategies of life are. And again, like you said, the pandemic has really changed things because here we are on video, right? So that human connection that sometimes some of us maybe need that as a coping strategy. It's harder to have that right now.
It is, but through technology, a lot of things are possible.
Yes, we can give virtual hugs.
Yeah, it might not be the same thing, but it's something. Yeah. It's better than nothing.
Yes.
So I drank a lot. When I first got out in 2006, I, at that time, was drinking about a bottle of vodka a day.
Wow.
And yeah, in my house by myself in the dark type of thing. So I was lucky enough to be able to catch that and say, oh, this is not going to work for you. It's not healthy. I was trying to avoid everything and drink it away. And I quit. Haven't really touched alcohol since. Every once in a while, I'll have a drink, but not. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I had a drink. So I was able to see, for me, any amount of alcohol was giving way to binging and total avoidance. So I avoid it at all costs now. But that's just me. Some people can have a drink and not want to down the whole bottle. And I, unfortunately, am not that way. So the negative is, it's always there, but able to redirect that focus and shift it to something more positive definitely saved my life. It really did, because I was going down a path that was very, very bad. And I'm very lucky that I was able to get out of it. So.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you were able to, figure out how unhealthy that was for you. And I'm sure that's not an easy thing. How about you, Mike?
Well, I just want to say it's amazing that you were able to, come through it for the better and pull yourself out. But I want to say that that's very common. I went through something similar myself when I got out and I was readjusting, both trying to be a civilian again in a world of people that I didn't think understood me, isolation, distractions, substance use. I drank. I don't drink much anymore, but I do smoke cigarettes. That is one unhealthy coping mechanism that I employ, that I am trying to address myself. But there's also, when we talk about avoidance, that's a general term. There's also just look at it as distractions. Distractions can be good, but just like everything else, it needs to be done in moderation. And if you're doing nothing but distracting yourself by gluing yourself to the TV or playing video games or losing yourself in your work, working yourself to the bone, those are all unhealthy coping strategies. Working is good, but making sure that there's a healthy balance is always the best choice. There's also like dangerous, risky behaviors, drinking and driving too fast, weaving through lanes like an angry jerk. Those are things that, I've definitely been guilty of, and things that I have improved upon. I mean, if we want to start getting into the positive, we can try and bring this better into a happier note.
Well, and our friend Todd that's watching brought up a great point. This is one of the challenges with the pandemic, that many vets are going back to their safety zone, and once things end, it's going to be tough to re-engage. So I'm sure,
Yes.
I think one of the things that I love most about this series, and I appreciate both of you being so honest and forthcoming, because again, sometimes people don't want to share those type of stories because they feel like there'll be judgment or whatever it may be. So thank you for really sharing that. And now let's talk about some healthy things.
Dogs. Let's just talk about dogs for us.
Yeah, we could talk about dogs for hours.
I could talk about dogs for hours myself too.
I am a huge movie person. For the longest time, that was my coping mechanism, because you always have movies in the military, and you can kind of get out of your head for just 2 hours, and that's amazing to be able to get out of your mind and not be locked in with just your thoughts. So movies is a big one for me. Like I said earlier, I love The Nightmare Before Christmas. I kind of dug into that one very, very deeply, and I have a couple thousand movies, and I've pretty much, I'm a movie-aholic. It's my It's been great.
I still have my hard drives from the Army with who knows
Oh,
however many bootleg movies. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got like books and books of them, of the old CD ones that probably haven't seen the light of day in a couple years, but yeah, I have an extensive collection. So
Right. So things like that, watching a movie, watching a good TV show, or doing a puzzle, doing some sort of arts and crafts. I don't know if you are into, they call it stitching.
Todd mentioned yoga. Yoga is a great one.
Yes, yoga is a phenomenal one.
Actually, we have a great wellness series coming up at Clear Path, don't we?
Yeah, we're going to have yoga and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to find that link, and you guys can go and continue talking about some healthy coping strategies.
Well, we could bounce back to the previous session that we held on mindfulness, and a lot of the stuff that we talked about then, those are all things that you can incorporate into what we consider healthy coping strategies. Deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation. You can use, get an app on your phone to walk you through some breathing exercises, to walk you through that progressive muscle relaxation exercises. I know that every night when I need to maintain my healthy sleep hygiene, which is something that I've had to address as far as my own health, utilizing deep breathing every night really helps bring me down and calm me down and mellow me out. There's peer support, social support, talking to family, friends, phone calls, self-soothing exercises, and that again goes back to mindfulness. Behavioral activation, setting goals for yourself, setting tasks, making a to-do list, an approachable one every week or every day. Going to work, volunteering. I can keep going. Exercise. It's a long list, and it doesn't need to fit into anything we are discussing necessarily, because I'm sure there are lots of other ideas or coping strategies that those of you listening in could offer that I'd be like, aha, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's whatever works for you, as long as it's not obsessed over to the point where it becomes unhealthy, because we don't want that, because you'll, again, negative and negative. Or you don't want to obviously do any of the negative ones, even for a little bit, because they're accumulative. Once you start with one, you're gonna see that you'll progress into the negative ones, and it could be something, a positive one could be something that it just works for you. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be something you do with a group, or it could be just something that you like to do, like take pictures of flowers. It could be something that simple. So people who think that they can't find something, there's something out there that you're interested in that you could help and integrate into your daily routine to help you cope. So
Right.
like any of the stuff we've listed, yeah, that works for us, but you can find what works for you. There's something there for everybody. So
Right. And again, none of this is as easy as we're making it sound. Everything that's worthwhile you have to work for. And trying to make changes to be your behavior or to the way you think or your perception of your surroundings, the world around you, it takes a lot of hard work and it takes a lot of reinforcement. And that's why I think it's worth just mentioning one more time why those unhealthy coping strategies are a slippery slope. Because once you start doing that and you reinforce that behavior by continuing to do it, it's only going to make it harder to take back or to address down the line.
Yep.
All right. And so this was great. So, and kind of wrapping up, let's just kind of top three things that, you want veterans to know in terms of coping strategies. Kind of like, what are the top three things to just be mindful of? One of the things that you talked about was clinical help, like get some clinical help. So if you can give kind of those top three things, that would be great.
Well, don't let the coping strategies we're talking about today be the only thing you're doing to address PTS. That's first and foremost. Number two, this is from my perspective. Kelly will let you chime in after. But do what works for you. Do what makes you feel good. And don't be too hard on yourself. All this stuff, like I said, it's work, and it's not going to be something that you're going to be able to flip a switch and, change overnight. Because if you have that mentality, you're probably going to get to the point, and it's hard to get back up on the horse again and again. And I acknowledge that. So do small steps. Try the small things first. Try replacing one unhealthy thing a day, and just go from there.
Awesome. How about you, Kelly? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Don't worry about judgment from anyone else. If you find what works for you and it's healthy, look into it. And you may find that eventually that's not a good coping mechanism for you, or you've taken it to the extreme. You just adjust your line of fire and, go at it again. It's not as simple as it's just, oh, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do this one day and everything's going to change instantly. It does. It takes a lot of work. So just be patient with yourself. If you slide back, that's okay. We've all been there. We've all experienced that. There's nothing wrong with that. I've slid back many a times, but you just gotta, remember that you're doing this to improve your life and to make things better. So just don't give up. Just keep going and keep trying.
Yeah, and not only be kind to yourself throughout it, but be kind to anybody else that might be dealing with this stuff, because we all have our hiccups, and trying is the most important. So as long as you don't stop trying, you're on the right path.
Awesome. And if you're tuning in tonight or if you're catching the replay, please stop by our site, clearpathne.org. And we have I'm going to drop the link again to our peer mentoring. We are here to support you. And we also have many programs for our veterans and their families. And I thank you guys so much tonight for all those great coping strategies and all your information. And again, thank you for all that you do to make a difference every day. We really appreciate it. Something exciting that I do want to share is that our Empowerment Center it's like beautiful. We have so much work that's done, and we have this great new program that we're putting bricks out front in a memoriam. So I just wanted to share that we have. So if you are thinking about a veteran and a way to honor them, you can honor them in brick and be part of our Empowerment Center. So I'm going to drop in the link here with more information. All right.
And as always, if you guys, anybody listening needs anything or wants to reach out, wants to connect, has some questions, feel free to shoot us an email at info@clearpathne.org. Those will get routed to the right person who will be able to help you the best. And if we can't help you, we'll hook you up with who can.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for all our vets and families for watching. Thank you for your service. And we look forward to seeing you. We're actually in, I guess it's 2 weeks, we have another special live where we have women in service. And then we also have another part of this series. So March is a busy month. We are springing it forward, friends, and looking for the snow to get behind us in this cold for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks again, guys. You have a great night, and we will see you next time. Keep an eye on your email. Bye.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.